because we loved him. Because I loved you too, and I didn't want to make our breakup harder for you than it was already. Lizzie pulled her mum into a hug. That's what makes you my absolute hero. Don't be silly, Gwendolen said with a sniff. She wriggled from Lizzie's arms and dabbed at her eyes again. The car slowed. Lizzie looked out of the window to see the evergreen-topped walls of the churchyard come into view. The wiry trees reached from the grey stones into a patchwork sky, their branches buffeted by a brisk November wind. The village of Piriwick was a pretty place, and its church was still picturesque even when dressed for such a sombre occasion. Her dad had returned to the village of his birth as often as he could during his lifetime, sometimes bringing his children to see what few sights there were. Often Lizzie and her siblings had been bored, but now she wished they'd shown more enthusiasm. It seemed only fitting that he should be buried here. Looks like we're here, she said. Her gaze ran over a crowd of black-clad mourners gathered at the gates. All turned at the arrival of the lead car. There were some people she knew, a lot that she didn't. Perhaps they were from his other life, the one he'd shared with Florentina. It would have made him happy to see so many people here, her mum said, nodding approval. It would, Lizzie agreed. He liked a good turnout for any social occasion, even more so when it was in his honour. He went to enough of them. He did. Lizzie laughed through the tears she could no longer hold back. He would have gone to the opening of an envelope. I think he secretly always wished he was a celebrity. He was to us. Lizzie turned to see her mum was smiling now, even as tears rolled down her own face. For the briefest moment, they shared the bittersweet memories of a man who had been as remarkable as he was loved, and it was hard to believe that such a larger-than-life character was no longer among them. His death had been so sudden that they'd all struggled to take it in, even now. But then Lizzie dried her eyes and took a deep breath. We'd better go in and get our seats. Behind Florentina, I suppose. It stinks, I know. But hold your head up high and proud. You were his first love, and you had a lot more years with him than she did. Everyone in there knows it. And we had you, and your brother, and your sister, her mum said, stroking Lizzie's face. If nothing else good came from our marriage, there was always you three. It was Lizzie's turn to purse her lips, biting back a reply that demanded to know that if her siblings were so perfect, where were they now? Gracie was in another car with her Hooray Henry boyfriend, having dashed up at the last minute because she had a presentation that was apparently more important than her father's funeral, and James had promised to come, but as yet had not reported for duty, which had left Lizzie alone trying to comfort her mum when she was barely coping herself. What loving children indeed. How blessed her parents must have felt with the kids who could barely trouble themselves with a visit once they'd flown the nest. She shook away the bitter thoughts. Now was not the time for them, and they wouldn't help her feel better in the end. James and Gracie had their own lives now, and they were free to make choices that suited them, not their parents, and not her. It stung, that was all, and it must have stung their mum, though she'd never say it. They were her children, and in her eyes they could do no wrong, no matter how anyone else saw it. Lizzie and her mum climbed out of the car, and Lizzie linked arms with her. They walked together, arm in arm, as the path that threaded the churchyard crunched beneath their feet. She glanced back to see another car had just arrived. Her sister, Gracie, got out, and she had her boyfriend, Frank, with her, but also James. Presumably they'd travelled from London together. At least that was something. At least they were here. Lizzie tugged on her mother's arm and gestured that they should wait for a moment. Once Gracie and James had joined them, they turned again, facing the crowd of mourners and the huge church doors. This was it. Showtime, her dad would have said. Chapter 2. It was May Day, a time of new beginnings, of optimism, of celebration.